Welcome back, everyone, to the Children First Family Law Podcast. I am your host, Krista Nash, and I'm really glad to be with you. Today, you get me solo. It is our fourth of 4 episodes on adverse childhood experiences, also known as ACEs. It's the final part of our 4-part series, and I thought I would come to you today and give you a little bit more perspective from my seat as a child advocate and family law attorney as to this very, very important issue. If you've been following along, you know we've already been on a journey together. We started with Dr. Kathleen McNamara, who helped us understand the research, what ACEs are, why they matter, and how early trauma truly does shape a child's developing brain. I really encourage you to go back and listen to that one if you have not had the pleasure of listening to her explain and really give her psychologist perspective on this whole very important situation. Then we had 2 episodes in a row. I think that's the first time I've ever done that on the podcast, where I actually thought that a guest had enough to share that we should do 2 in a row and just split it in half. But we did that on this situation because we had a very powerful conversation with an old friend of mine, Chris Markham, who, if you listen to the episodes, you will know. And if you haven't listened, you should go listen to, talked with us about how he has survived ACEs and really showed the resiliency and those resiliency factors that we want to see people come out of, even if they've had ACEs, and talked about why his life, he thinks, has turned out to be really very successful and happy and flourishing, despite all of the different ACEs that he experienced. You'll recall, if you listened, that he was not only a child of a very terrible and toxic divorce when he was very, very young, with a lot of alienating behaviors from his mother against his father. Really powerful stories that he shared about that. Also, he was a victim of child abuse, and he was actually at and a victim of the Columbine High School shootings and was a survivor, I remember seeing the shrapnel marks on his arm and him telling me where he got those. So he is a story of resiliency despite adverse childhood experiences. I hope if you haven't listened, you'll go back and visit those episodes because they're just so powerful. Today, though, this final episode is just me. It's a reflection and a conversation about what we've learned about ACEs and how ACEs show up in my world, in family law, in child advocacy, and in the day-to-day lives of families I work with, in the hopes that what I'm sharing will help you do better for your children. Or if you are representing parents in these really hard cases, or you are judicial officers or mental health professionals, I hope that you will really pay attention to this very important topic and really make it influence how you really approach these cases in a way that can make a huge, huge difference. It's very important. I want to talk to you about is what ACEs really means for our kids. Let's start with the basics, but not in human language, really. Adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, are things that happen in childhood that can cause deep emotional or physical stress. These can be things like abuse, neglect, witnessing domestic violence, or growing up with a parent who struggles with addiction or mental illness. But ACEs can also include chronic conflict, instability, emotional unavailability, the kind of stress that wears down a child's sense of safety, even when no one means to hurt them. What's powerful and heartbreaking about ACEs research is that it shows us something we already know in our bones. What happens to us in childhood echoes throughout our lives. It affects our health, our relationships, our ability to regulate emotion, even the way our brains are wired to respond to stress. And what's equally important, though, is that ACEs are not destiny. And we heard this from Dr. McNamara and from Chris Markham. They are a story that can be rewritten through love, connection, safety, and understanding. And so let me paint a little bit of a picture for you. Imagine Emma, a 9-year-old girl. Every night her parents argue behind closed doors. No one hits her. She's not physically abused. She's loved, she's fed, she does well in school or well enough, but her little body tenses every time voices rise. She starts apologizing for things that aren't her fault. She flinches when someone slams a door. That is one form of an ACE, an adverse childhood experience. It's invisible to the outside world, but her nervous system feels like it is like almost thunder in her life. Now imagine a different moment. One night, her mom kneels beside her and says, I know you hear us argue sometimes. That's not your fault. You don't have to fix it. You're safe and we both love you. That conversation doesn't erase the stress, but it does give Emma's body a message. You are seen, you are safe, and you don't have to carry this. And that is how healing can sometimes begin. We need trauma-informed advocacy and practice. It starts with safety, trust, choice, collaboration, and empowerment, the 5 pillars of trauma-informed care. Again, I'll say those: safety, trust, choice, collaboration, and empowerment. And translating those into our role and our cases takes creativity and humility. Imagine a mother who's a domestic violence survivor. She arrives to court late, shaking. She avoids eye contact. She can't remember detail. In a traditional setting, she might just be reprimanded or doubted. But a trauma-informed judge might say instead, I see you're upset. Are you safe being here today? Would you like a few minutes before we start? That question or that line of questionings would change everything. And it tells her the space is safe. You are seen. Or consider an attorney meeting a client who's inconsistent. They miss appointments. They shut down in meetings. They lash out in emails. It's easy to label that as difficult. But through the ACEs lens, we might realize we're looking at someone whose entire life has taught them that institutions can't be trusted, that every time they've opened up, it's been used against them. When we respond with empathy instead of impatience, we shift from adversary to ally. And I also think this is important, even if you are an attorney with an opposing counsel. I train my staff not to call opposing counsel. If we're representing a parent, we call that parent that child's parent. So if we're representing mother, we say father's counsel, because even that subtle shift, instead of calling that person opposing and instead calling that person father's counsel, does something in our brains as attorneys to say that we're not against this person. And we shouldn't be. We should be trying to find solutions together for that family. And the system being set up to be so adversarial is inherently broken because we are damaging children, not just advocating for our clients. Also, we'd have to take seriously, and I would send you back to Terry Harrington's episode with me many, many months ago. Terry Harrington is a leader in Colorado law and a mentor of mine, and she has said that we are first responders, and we are. We are. We need to be treating cases like first responders. We need to be empathic and loving, and we need to be great lawyers, great mental health professionals, and truly great listeners, know the law, be able to advocate. But we are also counselors at law when we are attorneys, and we are to provide counsel, and that counsel should include what is best for children and be truly informed about ACEs and how this parent can make choices that either help or hurt their children. I've learned that trauma-informed lawyering isn't just about what you say, it's also how you say it. It's choosing language that calms. It's slowing down enough to explain every next step. It's saying we more often than you. It's remembering that a parent's meltdown in mediation or with an attorney might not be defiance, it might be grief. And this isn't just for clients, it's for practitioners as well, because family law professionals, mental health professionals, judges, we absorb a lot of pain. We sit in rooms thick with anger and fear and hatred and, and aggression. We live in a place of high conflict. And if we don't take care of ourselves, we too can become numb or cynical. That's secondary trauma, and it's real. So part of being trauma-informed is caring for our own nervous systems, taking breaks, seeking consultation, reflecting on our own ACEs and triggers so we don't project them into the case. You can't pour calm into a chaotic system if your own well is empty. The truth is that our words carry weight. A single sentence from a lawyer, a judge, a child advocate can stay with a child or parent for years. I have had clients quote back things a professional said 5 years ago, 10 years ago, both hurtful and healing comments. So be careful what you say. One client once told me, I still remember the day the judge said, "You're not a bad mom, you're just overwhelmed." That was the first time I believed I could get better. That's the kind of power we hold and the kind of responsibility we share. So we're getting to the end of this. Thanks for sticking with me if you're still here. I will say that when I think about the future of family law, I picture something very different from the systems we have today. And these are the things that I've been trying to talk about when I get to talk to people at the Christian Legal Society and at other institutions where I have the honor to get in front of people. I imagine a courthouse and a system where every custody evaluator, every guardian ad litem, every child advocate, every attorney, every judge has trauma-informed training where they understand ACEs science the way doctors understand anatomy.